Ciao, what's poppin' YouTube? I'm back at it again with another classic book review. This time with the certified Hood classic, The Phantom of the Opera. And by Hood I mean Broadway.
This is a certified Hood classic.
So, this story was first published back in the year of our Lord 1910 by Gaston Leroux. At the time, it wasn't really that hype, but it actually fell out of print for a while until Henry Lloyd Webber found a beat-up copy that his friend was reading and gave it a peruse. He then realised this book is an actual bop and made the musical, and ta-da, now everybody knows, The Phantom of the Opera. So let's just get into it. So the story opens in the Paris Opera House in the 1880s. People are talking because the opera ghost, colloquially known as the OG throughout the story, literally, the Phantom of the Opera is the real OG. Anyway, so he's a local legend that haunts the opera house. He has his own box 5, in which he watches the opera, and the opera pays him an allowance of 2,000 francs a month. No clue how much that is in today's money, but yeah, anyway. And on occasion, he kills people, like this dude that was recently found dead in the opera. That's why people are talking. People think it was probably the opera ghost, and he even attends a dinner and basically admits it, so how anybody can doubt this dude's existence at this point is beyond me, but anyway.
Ooh, I'm a ghost.
Oh, well. The opera house has recently changed managers, and the old managers warn the new ones about the opera ghost and his antics. The new managers don't believe them, but when they start getting notes about how they need to reserve the ghost box 5 and pay him 2k smackaroos, they don't believe it and think that either the old managers are playing a prank on them or each other are. Anyway, so Statler and Waldorf get warned by the OG that bad stuff is going to start happening if they don't do what he wants. They tried to get to the bottom of the ghost business as they hear him whispering in the walls and stuff sometimes.
It looks like we have a real mystery on our hands.
But one weird request the ghost has is that this singer, Christine Day, I don't know how to pronounce it, whatever, let's say Day, performed the lead role on Faust instead of her rival, Carlotta. These are some weird old French names or something, I don't know. And anyway, if they don't do that, bad things are going to happen. They refuse, and then the other singer, Carlotta, starts croaking like a demon frog inexplicably, and then a chandelier falls from the ceiling and kills a rich woman. So yeah, the OG wasn't kidding around. So the managers start to buy into the ghost, as even if this is a normal dude, he seems to be performing actual witchcraft around the opera. Which is revealed later that he's not. It is all just tricks. He's a ventriloquist, and that's why he can bounce his voice around to make it sound like Carlotta's croaking. He uses trapdoors and things, and just daylight robbery sometimes. So yeah, the Phantom of the Opera is not actually a ghost, and he's not actually a witch. But meanwhile, the actual story has been about this edgelord called the Viscount Raoul de Chagny, and his quest to simp over opera star Christine Day. Simp! He thinks because they were friends growing up that he is entitled to her purse, and so after a performance at the opera, to which his brother, the Count of some place or another, invited him to, he goes out to simp over his e-girl.
Oh heavens! The simp has fallen in love with the e-girl!
However, he hears her talking to another man in the dressing room. Weird. Well, the Viscount doesn't give up, he keeps trying to simp, so he starts talking to Christine, who recently has been getting hella good at singing. He stalks her back at her adopted parents' house, where in the middle of the night, she goes on a midnight stroll and ends up in a graveyard where her father's old violin is playing beautifully. So she keeps getting better and better at the opera house, and Raoul de Chagny decides he needs to hit on her some more, and so he tries, but she says that she's already seen somebody, the Angel of Music. The Angel of Music is this disembodied voice she hears in her dressing room that teaches her how to sing. It was also the thing playing her father's violin, because her father used to say that the Angel of Music is this inspirational force from heaven that will visit a musician once in their lifetime. And so yeah, she's sort of really bought into this. Now, you'd think that given all the stories of the opera ghost, and now how there's some kind of angel strutting about teaching cute young women how to sing, that either of these two Einsteins would have been able to put two and two together and realise that they are both the same person, but they don't. Anyway, so after that Carlotta woman got the lead woman in Faust, the Phantom of the Opera, who is a man called Eric, abducted Christine, and she goes missing for a bit. So in this time, Eric reveals himself as the Angel of Music to Christine, and she has to stay in his house on the underground lake beneath the opera. This is a real thing, by the way. There is an actual lake underneath the opera. Anyway, so Eric is actually this deformed man who wears a mask all the time to disguise his terribly deformed face. He's a musical virtuoso and has fallen madly in love with Christine. He keeps her down there with him for a bit, showing her his organ and this song he's composing, etc, etc. Anyway, so his plan is to keep her down there for a few days while he turns on the moves, but there was one rule.
The only rule I have is have fun.
Which was that she can't remove his mask, which of course she does, and reveals his disfigurement. When she does this, Eric gets spooked and decides that he's going to keep her there permanently so she can, never leave him. However, Christine doesn't really want to live with the Duke of Edinburgh beneath the opera, and so after a few weeks she requests release. Eric, who is in love with her, I remind you, says he will let her go if she promises to marry him and wear his golden ring at all times.
Shame!
She agrees and goes back to the opera. However, Raoul, the Simp Lord, immediately tries to get back in her pants, and he notices the ring. So she spills the beans on everything, warning him that Eric sees and hears everything in the opera. However, she confirms she is indeed in love with Raoul for some reason. Sure. And so the two have a nice little date round the opera. Christine then makes Raoul promise to whisk her away to safety after her next performance of Faust. She says that she won't just get up and leave Eric, as she kind of likes him and sympathises with him and wants to sing for him one final time. Unfortunately, Sneaky Pants Eric heard the whole thing, and so during the last performance he abducts her and takes her back below the opera using a network of trapdoors. Because of this, Raoul is enraged and decides he's going to go down to the cellars of the opera and rescue her. He gets some help from this eccentric opera regular known only as the Persian, who has conveniently had dealings with Eric back in Persia, and the two of them go off to complete the cellar of the opera dungeon. They meet all kinds of zany characters, and the Persian explains his dealings with Eric. Basically, Eric was an inspired architect back in Persia who designed this big palace for the Sultan or King or whatever it is in Persia. I think it's a Sultan. Anyway, he loved trapdoors and was a master of theatrics. The Persian explains that he was basically a sheriff, and eventually, because Eric knew too much, Eric was to be executed, but the Persian saved him and got him out of the country. Eric then ended up in Paris and helped build the opera house. The Persian talks about all kinds of defences around the place, like this siren that guards the lake and all kinds of stuff like that, but he manages to sneak them into this secret cellar that would lead right into Eric's house. However, they get caught in Eric's torture chamber, which the Persian recognises. Eric built one for the Sultan back in his Persian days, and it is basically a room full of mirrors meant to look like a forest in a desert, etc. It is too hot, too cold, and all kinds of horrible stuff, and slowly the prisoners go mad trying to figure out where they are, see through mirages, and try to drink fake water and eat fake food and stuff like that. However, the Persian knows that if he can find this one panel, he can press it and it will open a secret door. However, on the other side of the torture chamber they can hear the Phantom and Christine. Basically, Eric says that Christine has to marry him, or he blows up the opera and kills everyone in it. Under obvious duress, Christine agrees. So the Persian and Raoul escape the torture chamber and fall into some water or something. Anyway, they find the barrels that Eric would have used to blow up the opera, and because Christine picked to marry him, he has now drowned them.
The simp has...
And because Raoul and the Persian were in there, they're about to drown. However, Christine promises that she won't off herself, and so as an act of love, Eric releases the other two. He then gives Christine a smooch, and she kisses him back, and he reveals that he has never been kissed by anyone before. He then basically says that he is content and that he is fine for Christine and Raoul to leave together on the condition that on his death day she would return to him and give him back his ring and bury him with it. Yeah, so a bit later Eric dies and the Persian has his little eulogy published for him in the paper, and by eulogy I mean just the words, Eric is dead. Oh yeah, and Raoul's brother died trying to boat across the underground lake to save him or something. I'm not really sure why this happened, but it did. So yeah, that's the Phantom of the Opera. So, this book is really good. I was expecting it to be a slog, but honestly, I really enjoyed it. The initial mystery of the ghost of the opera and everything was fantastic, and the ending was really well paced. However, the middle really sagged, and the sort of cutting between the opera manager's storyline and the main storyline was kind of jarring, because the book at the very beginning sort of sets it up like they're going to be the protagonists, and then they're completely sidelined and don't even show up at the end, really. This book is burdened by a lot of the cliches of its era, such as the unrealistic insta-love and the ugly villain trope, but in the end it was a rather mature take on a million dime a dozen romance and horror cliches. The main themes I took away from this one is that everyone needs love in the end, even horrible monsters, and that we shouldn't treat people poorly because of their ugliness. Eric would never have been a villain if he wasn't so deformed. He was forced to hide himself away and never experienced any love from anybody, not even his own mother. The world's rejection of him turns him into this controlling, obsessive villain, whereas it is showing that he is actually rather compassionate deep down and is a true genius. He lets Christine leave him at the end because he does care about her, and he is, a master musician, a master singer, and a genius architect. He should be a historical hero, but because he looks like an actual corpse, he is shunned from normal life by our collective prejudice and transformed into a monster. Most of the other characters are pretty good too. The opera owners are a fun pair, and the Persian is actually a rather interesting and multi-layered character despite barely being featured. I actually wish we had more time with him. And Christine is okay, I guess. But my main issue with the book is Raoul. I really don't like him. He does nothing but thirst after Christine all book. And his attitude is kind of yikes because it feels like he thinks he is entitled to her. And their love story seems really, really forced. But other than that, yeah, the character works pretty good. I'm still giving this book a 5 out of 5, despite Raoul. It's super fun, it's an easy read, and with a surprisingly well executed themes and a rather nuanced take on a lot of things. I would give this a 9 out of 10 if I was ranking out of 10, purely for having such an annoying protagonist, but if you can get past Raoul, you're in for a classic of French literature. And if you want to check out a not 5 out of 5 classic of French literature, you can check out All Hail the Carrion King. It's Canadian, so it's like 20% French. I don't know. Anyway, like, comment, share, subscribe, etc., etc. Goodbye.
Buy my book! Buy my book! Before it's too late, people!
Here's a lesson in trickery.